right, my name is Christy Lara. I am gonna let the call build just a few minutes here as we wait for people to log on. We want to thank everyone for taking out time on this Monday evening to join us. Again, my name is Christy. I work with the Our Revolution national team. This is our Monday night field organizing call for our leaders across the nation working to turn their communities as well as their states progressive. Thanks to everyone who's able to join us this evening. We have a fantastic lineup for you that we think you will enjoy this mid-March meeting. It's March 15th, y'all. March 15th. We're just into the a year into the lockdown. So it's an amazing anniversary, but also a good time to remember that the work never stopped for progressives in this nation. You guys have been hard at work all last year and into this year. As we say at Our Revolution, we have no off years. Every year is a progressive year. If this is your first time joining us, please put your name as well as what state you're organizing with and what group you organize with. And I'll make sure to mention those as those come in to the chat. That way we can get to know each other through this call. Tonight, we will have a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, Mondaire Jones, speaking about For the People Act, CWA Union Leader Sara Steffens on the PRO Act. Amirah Sequeira speaking from National Nurses United on Medicare for All, and Delane Easton, who's running to be the chair of the California Democratic Party. So it's a great show talking about the work that progressives are doing across the nation, East Coast to West Coast, DC to Cali. So please make sure that you shout out where you're from, who you're organizing with, and what group you're with. Manuela joins us from New York. Welcome, Manuela. Molly says, good evening. Welcome, Manu. Manu joining us. Welcome, Manu. Linda Christopher joining us from Sonoma County, California. Hal joining us from Maryland. He's doing a shout out in there. Please make sure to mention and comment in the chat. Philip Beinhart joining us from Eugene, Oregon. Welcome, Philip. Bruce J. joining us from Broward County, Florida. Lucera joining us from OR, South Carolina. Good to see you, Lucera. Glad you're here tonight. Alan Sattler joining us from South Carolina. Carla Sand joining us from Minnesota. Welcome, Carla. Lily joining us from Happy Spring, she says, from Georgia. Good to see you, Lily. Thanks for joining us this evening. Sheila Goldner joining us from Cathedral City, California. Welcome, Sheila. Glad to see you here. Susan Steigerwalt. Hi, Susan, one of our major amazing phone bankers. If you've run for office, it's likely that Susan has made calls for you. So she is an amazing phone banker with Our Revolution. Again, we're going to give the call just a few more minutes to build here. Susan says to make sure you support Amazon workers. Right on, Susan. We always want to support organizers across the nation. Anna Martha joining us from New Jersey. Welcome, Anna Martha. Good to see you. Jason Small joining us. Jason, Feel the Burn from San Fernando Valley. Good to see you here tonight. Kathy joining us from Salem, Massachusetts. Pierre joining us from Yonkers. Kay Stevens says, shout out from Thousand Oaks, California. Shout out to Delane Easton. Good to see you guys. Sadia Paloma joining us from Berkeley. Let's see. Good evening, everyone. Michelle Verne, president of Feel the Burn San Fernando Valley, Woodland Hills. Welcome. Good to see you here tonight. Darlene Purdy joining us from Deschênes, Utah. Dick Haas from Pontiac, Illinois. Let's see. Mary Nelson from Chicago. We Raise and Illinois Our Revolution. Karen Stevens from Thousand Oaks. Jake joining us from Our Revolution East Bay. Good to see you, Jake. We miss you here in Texas, but it's good you're doing the work in Cali. Let's see. Hal says Susan is the best. Susan really is the best, y'all. If y'all don't know Susan, she really is awesome. Stephen Terry Baker joining us from Seattle. Good to see you here, Stephen. And Copenhagen joining us from Orlando. Cynthia, aloha from Hawaii. Good to see you, Cynthia. Glad you're here. Jason C. Small says solidarity forever. Solidarity to you too as well. Good to see you here, Jason. Louise joining us from Oakland. Good to see you. Jim Stewart from New Jersey. David from Orange, California. Sorry about that. Bert Morris joining us from Maplewood, New Jersey. David LeGrand from OR Howard County, Maryland. Hi, let's see. James says hi from Monroe County, Indiana. Matt Weaver from Toledo, Ohio. So much good work going on in Ohio. Again, we're going to give just a minute more for the call to build. We want to thank everyone who's able to join us tonight. And we want you to know that we could not continue this work of spreading the progressive message and the progressive voice without each and every one of you becoming a sustaining member at Our Revolution. That way we can continue this work year after year, month after month, organizing the down ballot as well as the federal candidates, all the way from the bottom, all the way to the top. Paco, do you want to take it from here?
I will actually take it from here. Thank you so much, Christy, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our weekly National Organize to Win call. My name is Anna Marta Vishki, and together with Paco Fabian, I will be your host tonight.
Thank you, Ana Marta. And wow, it's amazing to see we have about 5,000 people on the call between Zoom and Broadnet and all the other places that folks are watching. So it's awesome to have you all here. As you all know, 2021 may not be a major election year, but there's still plenty to do to achieve the transformational change that we all want to see. This year, we can make real progress on our progressive agenda. It's only March, but our members have been already winning major victories in all 4 parts of our 4-point plan, as you can see on the screen. But we can't slow down or take our eyes off the ball. We need to keep organizing, to keep the pressure up both inside and outside in order to win.
That's right, Paco. So let's start tonight with a quick recap on how our movement is fighting to advance progressive policies. This week at the US Capitol, Our Revolution members held a nationally live-streamed press conference to call on Congress to pass the PRO Act, a landmark pro-labor bill that would roll back decades of anti-union legislation. And the House passed the bill, which is now on to the Senate, and we are pushing the Senate to get the job done. And we'll hear more about that from Sara Steffens of CWA, who is joining the call later today.
And there's no better example of why we must protect the right to organize than what's going on in Alabama. We heard shout outs in the pre-call. Amazon's ruthless union busting campaign is out of control. So right now, Amazon is reportedly paying about $10,000 a day to consultants who are violating the rights of workers to organize. This past Saturday, Our Revolution Ohio rallied with our very own Senator Nina Turner, who's running for Congress, at the Amazon-owned Whole Foods in University Heights, Ohio. They had an awesome rally. You can watch it online if you haven't seen it yet. And they were demanding a stop to the illegal union busting that's happening in Alabama and beyond.
And this week, Bernie Sanders will bring the battle against Amazon union busting to Washington. He's holding a hearing in the Budget Committee, and an Amazon worker has agreed to testify. But you all know who is missing from that testimony. Jeff Bezos has rebuffed Bernie's offer to show up, and Bernie has asked why he's become $78 billion richer during the pandemic. Families are struggling to survive. So why is he spending a whole lot of money to stop workers from organizing a union at an Amazon warehouse in Alabama?
You know what, Ana Marta? That's totally unacceptable. Not only did Jeff Bezos get rich as a pandemic profiteer, but Jeff is also getting rich from federal government contracts. That's our money, and he should be held accountable. At Our Revolution, we don't think that taxpayer dollars should be going to companies that are busting unions or violating workers' rights. And that's what we're calling on President Joe Biden to fix this. And he can do it with the stroke of a pen. Join us with the link in the chat so that you can also raise your voice and say it's unacceptable for our taxpayer dollars to be used to violate the rights of workers.
I hope many of you are signing up on that link. And as we continue to fight for union rights, we are also doubling down on the fight for 15. This week, Our Revolution's executive director, Joseph Gibarghese, told NBC News that the fight for 15 is far from finished. Democrats campaigned on it, as you well know. Low-wage workers need it, which we know. A majority of Americans support it. Even Josh Hawley and major corporations declared support for the $15 minimum wage. So given the popularity of $15 minimum wage, Joseph said that it would be political suicide for Democrats to settle for anything less.
And that's why here at Our Revolution, we're organizing to demand that Congress raise the minimum wage in the second budget bill that will be taken up later this year. And we're also calling on President Biden to use his executive powers and sign an executive order that would withhold lucrative federal contracts from companies that refuse to pay their workers a living wage.
Not only are worker rights under attack, so is our democracy. Over 253 bills, 253, have been introduced in 43 states to obstruct voting. And that's why Our Revolution supports the For the People Act, which protects voting rights. The bill passed the House last week and now moves to the Senate.
And Congressman Mondaire Jones, who will be joining us soon here, one of the new members of Congress from New York, will talk a little bit about the For the People Act with us. And he's also going to discuss why we need to end the filibuster. We talked about the PRO Act. We've talked about other legislation on these calls in the past. We can get it through the House, but if we can't get it through the Senate, it's going to be a problem. So, he's going to talk a little bit about that, about how that affects the For the People Act and the PRO Act. We need this legislation to continue and not die in the Senate.
That's right, Paco. And in addition to fighting for progressive policies, we are also doing the work to elect progressive champions to represent our movement and our communities. This week, we have a chance to send another progressive to Congress. Our Revolution is phone banking to help Karen Carter Peterson win the March 20th special election to fill Louisiana's open congressional seat. You can volunteer to send another progressive champion to Capitol Hill. Sign up in the chat.
And in addition to our electoral work, we're also doing the very hard work of transforming the Democratic Party into a progressive party. This week, Our Revolution scored a big win when the DCCC, that's the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, officially canceled its blacklist policy of punishing political consultants that are working with folks that are primarying Democrats. Politico called it a major victory for progressives and just the latest example of the left prevailing over the moderate wing of the House. Tonight, we're going to hear a little bit more about how we're going about doing that and our grassroots work to transform the party from Delane Easton, who's running to be the next chair of the California Democratic Party on a platform of progressive change. But if you haven't already done so, please consider becoming a member and a movement builder here at Our Revolution. Your monthly gift will help us keep fighting for progressive policies, electing progressive champions, and building a progressive party. I think that's something we all want. We've been fighting for it in many cases, a lot of folks for decades, and so we need to make it happen, and your contribution can really put us on that path and in the right direction. Every new member will receive a personalized movement builder membership card in the mail designed by our internationally renowned illustrator, Lauren Rollwing. If you don't know Lauren, check out her work online. It's amazing. She's one of the leaders of Our Revolution, Nashville and Middle Tennessee. So you can sign up to become a movement builder in the link that's getting dropped in the chat.
All right, I hope many of my New Jersey volunteer supporters, friends, allies who are on the call are signing up on this link. Thank you all so much. We need your help. We need your support. I know you know how much good work we are doing all across the country. Let's move on and introduce our first guest. As we mentioned, our members helped push the For the People Act through the House, which will remove barriers to voting and gerrymandering and curb the influence of big money in politics. And now it moves to the Senate. And joining us to talk about how we get this critical piece of pro-democracy legislation enacted is New York Congressman Mondaire Jones. Congressman, welcome to the call. Before we get started with HR 1, please let us know a couple of key things our organizers who are not from New York should know about you.
And I so appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself to you and your members. I am a candidate, well, now a member of Congress, for whom policy is personal. And I'm so grateful to have had the endorsement of this important organization in the course of that very long, crowded campaign that I ran last year. I have succeeded the legendary Nita Lowey in Congress, and I'm really proud to be among the most progressive members of the House of Representatives. I grew up in Section 8 housing and on food stamps, and my young single mother still had to work multiple jobs to provide for our family. So I say that for me, policy is personal. You know, when we talk about the need for a $15 minimum wage at the federal level, that is not academic for me. So too, the need for a strong Voting Rights Act, and just generally to protect our democracy from the same kinds of white supremacists who incited the violent insurrection on January 6th. It's why I'm so proud to be championing, as one of the leading proponents in the United States Congress, H.R. 1, now in the Senate, Senate Bill 1. And I think we will get that passed, and I'm very, very excited about it. I am also, along with a colleague, the first openly gay African-American member of Congress. And for most of my life, I never imagined that someone like me could run for Congress, let alone get elected. And so at the age of 33, I'm really proud that that was able to be done, to be expanding people's imagination of what is possible. In the affluent suburbs of New York City, I represent what parts of Westchester and all of Rockland County, where they're not used to progressive leadership, frankly. But here we are with the strong support of organizations like yours. And I just want to just say thanks again to everybody, whether it's our revolution and obviously my friends at CWA and National Nurses United, and the hundreds of thousands in the labor movement who put in so much work to fight for and pass these progressive policies in the past few months. We are now living in a watershed moment in American history, due in no small part to the hard work of everyone on this call tonight. And this moment is personal for me. Unlike many of the people we're used to seeing in our politics, as I mentioned, I don't come from money or from a political family. I'm in Congress to fight for families like the one I grew up in. And I've been fighting for H.R. 1, the For the People Act, because I know that the many challenges facing families like mine can be traced to one common cause, and that is our broken democracy. At the root of why housing, higher education, and healthcare are out of reach for millions of Americans is the fact that our democracy does not reflect the will of everyday people. As a then 32-year-old working class candidate for Congress who began as a primary challenger and then ran in a very crowded field, I experienced our broken democracy, and in particular our rigged campaign finance system firsthand. When I was considering running for office, the first question political insiders asked me wasn't what I would be fighting for or whether my community was behind me, but rather how much money I could raise. That was gross to me. In our democracy, you shouldn't have to be wealthy or blow through your savings to mount a viable campaign for the United States Congress or any other office. And you shouldn't be precluded from running for office because you don't have enough friends with disposable income to donate to your campaign. These are distortions of the democratic process, and these distortions are how we end up with a government full of millionaires who routinely ignore the needs of working people. Folks who have the nerve to question the need for $2,000 survival checks in the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Fortunately, I'm an exception to the rules of our broken democracy. And while for most of the race journalists and most people describe my victory as improbable, we were ultimately together successful, but I should not be the exception. With the small dollar matching system in H.R. 1, working class members of Congress, including millennials who have tens of thousands or in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt, can become the norm. H.R. 1 is itself a declaration for American democracy. A democracy where working people are in charge, not billionaires, special interests, and big corporations. A democracy where, when we end partisan gerrymandering of congressional districts, QAnon conspiracy theorists cannot coast to victory in general election contests, incite violent insurrections, and then win a civil war within the Republican caucus. Now, we must fix our broken democracy through H.R. 1 in order to elect more progressive working class champions to Congress who look like America, who sound like America, and who will fight alongside us. And so we can pass the progressive legislation we urgently need, like Medicare for All and a Green New Deal. And yes, a $15 or higher federal minimum wage. That democracy, I'm here to tell you, is still within reach, but we will not get there without a fight. And there can be no doubt that we are in the fight of our lives. That is why this coalition is so important. You all represent the people power that will carry us to victory in the Senate and get this legislation to Joe Biden's desk. You are not just fighters, you are winners. I know from personal experience because you helped me win my race when nearly the whole world counted me out. And I was up against the son of a pharmaceutical billionaire who spent $6 billion to basically purchase a congressional seat. We defeated him and so many other people anyway. And so now that we have gotten H.R. 1 through the House for a second time, with your help, I know we will finally get Senate Bill 1 through the Senate and onto President Biden's desk. Of course, we can't get there if we don't abolish the Jim Crow filibuster. The Senate is already a minoritarian institution. The 50 senators who voted for the American Rescue Plan represent 40 million more people than the 50 senators who voted against it. We cannot continue to stack the deck against popular and necessary legislation. The filibuster has to go. And this will not be easy, but it is the good, necessary trouble that the late John Lewis told us to get into. And the reason it won't be easy is because when we do win, our success will be transformative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Jones. Such a beautiful description. Policy is personal, and I'm sure it's personal for so many of us who are on this call. All of us have a personal experience that propelled us into organizing, so thank you for that. Any questions for the Congressman at this time? Let's see.
There were some questions, but they were answered by what the Congressman was mentioning. So nothing else coming in, but it's great to have you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's great to see you again.
Paco, so great to be here. So grateful to all of you for your leadership in this important fight. I was on a call earlier today with Senator Sanders and so many other progressive members of the House. And I got to tell you, we are optimistic about the prospects for legislating this year. I will tell you, don't let anyone tell you that the American Rescue Plan, despite not having everything that we wanted, like a $15 minimum wage, was not a transformative piece of economic legislation. I grew up in a school district. There's 97% Black and brown. 80% of those kids are eligible for free reduced lunch. And according to the Congressional Research Service, we're able to bring home $162 million for those public school students, not on a property tax-based formula, which we know compounds systemic racism in this country, but rather actually basing the aid that we provide school districts so that they can provide then transformative quality public educations, money based on the needs of the students who attend those districts. We've cut child poverty in half, you name it. So I'm very excited and reinvigorated by last week's victory. And of course, we've got so much more work to do, so we won't be letting up. And I'm grateful to be in partnership with you.
Well, thank you so much. And we look forward to continuing to work alongside our progressive champions in Congress. On the inside, you guys are. On the outside, we are. And together we can continue pushing for our progressive priorities. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
So you heard it from Congressman Jones. Will you help us fight for the filibuster? You know who will? You know who will? Octavia from California will. She just signed up to become a movement builder. So thank you so much, Octavia. Will you guys join Octavia? Our revolution is hiring organizers in Arizona and in West Virginia to hold folks like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema accountable to unrigging our Senate and changing the rules so that we can pass our progressive legislation and our progressive priorities through there. If you haven't already done so, you can join Octavia by clicking on the link that's getting dropped in the chat. We look forward to giving some more shout outs as the call goes on. So now we heard from Congressman Jones, Monday Jones, but you know what? Our democracy isn't the only thing that's under attack right now. For decades, labor rights have been rolled back. And right now, warehouse workers in Alabama, as we talked about earlier, are facing intimidation and illegal union busting and other anti-union tactics from their employers. And their employer in particular, Amazon, as they're voting to form a union. They've been voting by mail. They'll be voting all this month, and we'll know the results at the end of the month. The good news is an important pro-worker bill called the PRO Act would help reverse decades of anti-union legislation, and it passed the House last week, which is awesome. We were out there. You can see that picture out there with some of our union brothers and sisters from CWA and the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, pushing the House to pass it. So here to tell us a little more about that bill, what it does and how it fixes some of the things that have gone wrong over the last decades, is Sara Steffens. She's the Secretary Treasurer of the Communication Workers of America. She joined us last week when we were out there in front of Congress calling on the House to pass the PRO Act. Sara, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm so glad to be back with you, even if virtually this time.
Yep.
So, Sara, I think in order to illustrate some of the things that the PRO Act does, I think it's important for folks to understand what workers go through, right, when they're trying to form a union. So could you tell us a little bit about your story, right? You were a journalist in California that was involved in forming a union. Tell us all about that.
Yeah. I know firsthand what it's like when you are trying to organize a union and you realize that the laws that are supposed to be upholding your rights aren't really strong enough to protect you, especially when you really need them. I used to work at a newspaper in California called the Contra Costa Times, east of San Francisco. We got bought out by a very scary newspaper chain, and they were consolidating a lot of newsrooms. And a lot of us were worried about what all that cost cutting would mean to our ability to, report the news and serve our communities, which is really a passion of a lot of local journalists. So we decided to organize a union so we'd have a voice to fight back. And we found out pretty quickly that the company was not going to take this lightly. It's really hard to picture, if you haven't been through an organizing campaign, just the lengths that management will go to stop you, to stop workers from standing together to get that legal voice on the job. You might think it would be like an ordinary debate, but it really is about your boss day after day holding over you the power they have over your paycheck, doing everything they can to scare and intimidate you. We had all of that. We had captive audience meetings where, all the workers are forced to listen to ongoing anti-union things. I know that must be happening at Amazon right now. What they call one-on-ones, where one or two senior level managers will call in a single employee and tell them how terrible and disappointing it would be if the union were voted in, how disappointed they would personally be in that individual. So we hung in there, we won our vote. And even with all that, 2 weeks later, they fired me and 28 other people. We tried to fight to get our jobs back. And that's when we really saw how tilted the system is against workers. There really are practically no effective penalties for companies that engage in this kind of behavior. This happens not just to me, but to a lot of workers in a lot of different organizing drives. And it's not just about what happens when you're organizing, it's what happens when you try to bargain that first contract or go on strike. And that's why the PRO Act is so important. It's finally our chance to level the playing field for workers who have been suffering decades of relentless attacks by CEOs and everybody else who doesn't want workers to have power.
Right. I think one of the penalties that the PRO Act includes is actually meaningful
Right.
For violations of rights to organize, right? And so that's one of the things that I think a lot of employers just kind of, in many cases, just write it into their budget, right? It's like, we're going to have to spend this amount of money on these measly penalties that aren't going to be very significant, and we'll be able to get away with it, right? What other things do you think the PRO Act strengthens that would help alleviate the situation that you went through?
Right. I mean, under current law, if you as an employer are found guilty of illegally firing somebody during an organizing campaign, you have to bring them back and pay them back pay minus any earnings that they made since you fired them. So it's almost cheaper, to do the wrong thing than to do the right thing. In the PRO Act, there are actual monetary penalties for if an employer is found to have wrongfully fired somebody for organizing. And there's personal liability for corporate directors, officers who are found to be directing and encouraging this kind of behavior. So I think that's what'll get people's notice, is the idea that it's going to hit them in the pocketbook if they engage in these kind of behaviors. No more just hanging a notice on the wall or giving somebody, a few $100 or a few $1,000s.
Right. Another thing that I think is really significant, and I've seen this in my previous life, I worked with a lot of workers that went out on strike, federal contract workers and others during the Fight for 15, is that it also strengthens, the right to strike, and importantly, the supportive strikes that they used to occur right before they were made illegal. And that can create a lot of pressure. I think the other thing that's really important is what's been happening with the so-called gig economy, right? This bill would provide organizing rights to Uber and Lyft drivers, DoorDash delivery drivers, and others. And I think, I think that's important for folks that are in that sort of industry.
Absolutely. And the PRO Act also has some really important provisions to let workers who successfully organize get to that first contract. Right now, there's really no penalties. If your boss just doesn't sit down and bargain in good faith, never meets with the union, tries to run down the clock or wait till everybody's too frustrated, they can drag things out for not just months, for years as workers try to get that first contract. The PRO Act sets a deadline. And if a first contract isn't reached, there's mandatory mediation or arbitration. That is a huge incentive to these corporations to sit down and really engage at the table during within an appropriate time frame. No more playing the endless waiting game.
Right, and that's so common, right? They'll just not sit down and negotiate, and eventually, the energy fizzles, right? And so. Right. That's really important. Well, Sara, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Thank you for being with us out there last week. And we look forward to continuing to work with you guys in support of workers and workers' rights in this country.
Thank you. We hope everybody will push the Senate to do the right thing and get this passed by any means necessary. We know Cinema and Warner really need a lot of our focus, Warner in Virginia, Cinema in Arizona. And if, we're very supportive also of ending the filibuster. The AFL-CIO, CWA has been pushing that for years. The AFL-CIO has joined us unanimously, finally, in saying we should end the filibuster. So whatever it takes to get the PRO Act passed, it's what workers desperately need, especially essential workers right now. And thank you to everybody in our revolution for all your great work and keeping this work alive.
All right, thank you, Sara. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Me too.
So, will you help us fight for workers' rights? You know who will? Do you know who will? Linda from California will. She just signed up as a movement builder. So we're really excited that folks are signing up. We feel great that the work that we're doing is inspiring you guys to join us, and the more of us there are, the merrier, right? It's, as Bernie said, not me, us. So if you haven't already done so, please consider becoming a movement builder and help us fund organizers in places like West Virginia and Arizona, so we can put pressure on senators to end the filibuster.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Octavia. And now we want to pivot from worker justice to healthcare justice. And this is the issue that made me into an organizer and brought me to Our Revolution, the group that's been fighting for Medicare for All since we got started in 2016. And this week is a big week for us, all of us who are supporters and volunteers and organizers for Medicare for All, because this week on Wednesday, March 17th, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell and Pramila Jayapal will reintroduce the Medicare for All Act in the House. And if you sign up in the next 5 minutes to become a new member, we will send you our awesome Medicare for All posters. So the first 10 donors who sign up right now on this pitch will get a Medicare for All poster. So please get that link ready and sign up. So back to Wednesday, Our Revolution will be at the bill launch, and we will also hold a rally ahead of the bill launch at 9 a.m. If you are in DC, join us for this socially distant rally. The live stream will start at 9 a.m. You can also watch it on our Facebook page. And to talk more about Medicare for All, what is in the bill, and what we can all do to pass it this time is Amirah Sequeira, who is the lead legislative director with National Nurses United. Welcome, Amirah.
Thank you so much, Anna Marta, for having me here today. I'm excited to speak with you all today. So like Anna Marta said, I'm the lead legislative advocate for National Nurses United. We are the largest union and professional association of registered nurses in the country. We represent over 170,000 registered nurses across the United States. And we are really excited, gearing up for our Medicare for All bill introduction in the House, as Anna Marta said, this week on Wednesday. So I'll first tell you guys a little bit, for folks who may not know, just give you an outline about the bill, what Medicare for All will do, and also fill you in a bit about the ways that you all can participate to help us get ready for this bill launch, and the organizing that we are going to need once the bill is introduced. So I'll just start off by saying that it has never has it been so clear as it is today, a year into this pandemic, that our country must urgently transition to a single-payer Medicare for All system. What has happened over the course of the past year with the COVID-19 pandemic has been devastating and unacceptable. And one of the key reasons why our healthcare system has been unable to adequately respond to the COVID-19 pandemic is because our healthcare system as it exists right now is a for-profit and fragmented system, which means one, it puts prioritizes profits over patient care and patient lives. And two, it is so fragmented that when the system needs to be able to coordinate a response to a pandemic, it's unable to do so effectively. And so never has it been as clear as it is today, more than 530,000 preventable deaths later in this pandemic, that we need Medicare for All. And nurses who have been working at the bedside on the front lines of this pandemic, witnessing and experiencing the extreme suffering and trauma caused by this pandemic, know that if we had Medicare for All before this pandemic, we would not be in the situation we are in today. So that presents us an opportunity. We have a new opportunity by which to message the importance of Medicare for All to our friends, to our families, and to politicians in Washington, D.C., to our state and local government officials. We need to use this moment to make clear that the time is now for Medicare for All. So on Wednesday, we are reintroducing the House bill. I know that many of you have probably been working on this in your communities, advocating to your members of Congress for a long time now. Our Revolution has been a great partner in the Medicare for All movement with National Nurses United. But just as a bit of a recap, over the past few years, we have made major gains in the fight for Medicare for All. Last session, 2 years ago, we introduced the new House Medicare for All bill, which is the most progressive and most detailed healthcare legislation we've ever seen. And we introduced it with 107 co-sponsors originally, and we ended the session with 118 co-sponsors. And over the course of the last congressional session, we fought for 4 different hearings, which happened in the House of Representatives, the first hearings on Medicare for All. And over again, what we saw in those hearings was witnesses overwhelmingly making the case for the transition to a single payer system. So now we're reintroducing the bill on Wednesday. What would Medicare for All do? What would this bill do? Firstly, it would take our existing Medicare system, which I know some of you may be on. If not you, you may have parents or grandparents who use Medicare. In our country, all of us talk about how we can't wait to turn 65 because then we'll have Medicare and we know that we'll get the health care we need. So what this system would do is it would take the Medicare model. It would improve Medicare. Right now, Medicare doesn't cover dental, vision, hearing. So it would improve Medicare to cover these things. And then it would expand it to cover everybody. So under Medicare for All, you would have comprehensive benefits, including all primary care, all hospital and outpatient services, the cost of prescription drugs, dental, vision, hearing, all women's reproductive health services, maternity and newborn care, long-term services and supports, including home and community-based care. It would include mental health and substance use support. It would include virtually all the healthcare services you could need, and you would get those services free at the point of service. No copays, no deductibles, no premiums. You'd have a Medicare card and you'd give it to the hospital or the doctor and you'd get the care you need. That's how it would work. And by doing that, by taking our fragmented health insurance system and simplifying it so that we now just have one health insurer, Medicare, we would eliminate so much of the administrative financial waste, all this money we pour into the system that just is wasted on administrative costs. We would eliminate that and we would save money while providing care for everybody. And as I know many of you know, at least before the pandemic, at least 30 million people did not have insurance. Since the pandemic, that number has grown exponentially. And in addition to that, at least 40 million, but now it's much higher under this pandemic, at least an additional 40 million people can't afford the cost of their care because even though they have insurance, they can't pay the cost of their copays or their deductibles. So under this system, we would guarantee healthcare to every person in the United States, many of whom don't have it right now, and we'd save money. That's what this bill would do. So we're introducing it on Wednesday. We have one more day to increase the number of co-sponsors on this bill when we introduce it. That's called original co-sponsors. And so anything that you all can do to call your member of Congress and tell them that they need to co-sponsor this bill before Wednesday if they haven't already, make calls, get on social media, send out tweets to really put pressure on your member of Congress in the House to get on this bill by Wednesday. After we introduce this bill, our organizing around it has to continue. If after Wednesday your member of Congress isn't on the bill, please continue to make calls. I would just direct you, if you go to the National Nurses United social media, you will see our hotline number. So it's one number you can call, make a call, and it'll direct you to your representative to ask them to co-sponsor the bill. We're going to need to keep that up after Wednesday. But we're also going to need to do a lot of advocacy to put pressure on the chairs, the chairmen and chairwomen of key committees in the House to try to, one, move them towards supporting, and two, make sure we continue to have hearings in the House over the course of the next 2 years. And then second, we'll be looking forward sometime in the near future to a Senate bill introduction with Senator Sanders. And so I'm sure that Amirah and the rest of our Rev will be letting you know when we get ready for the Senate introduction, because we're going to need a lot of grassroots movement work to make sure we introduce the bill in the Senate with as strong of a co-sponsor group as possible. So that's my spiel. Thank you so much for having me on this call, and to all of you that have been working so hard to increase support for Medicare for All so that we can pass this legislation sometime soon. Thank you for that work. And I also just want to thank everyone at our Rev, all of the activists on this call who've been working. We're helping to pass the PRO Act last week, also a major priority for National Nurses United. And we deeply appreciate all of the work you all put in to help us pass that bill last week.
Thank you so much, Amirah. Such wonderful work that you have been doing at National Nurses United to advance Medicare for all in this country. Just one question for you. Is there any flyer comparing the 2019 bill to the 2021 bill? That's from one of our organizers. I'm sure is looking forward to pass it along to her community.
Yeah, so I would just note the bill in 2019 versus the bill that we're looking at, it will be introduced in 2 days. They're almost the same. The bills do largely the same thing. There are a few improvements, small improvements in the bill. And so after the bill is introduced, there will definitely be a summary of those improvements, of those small changes once the bill is introduced on Wednesday that I'm sure will get out to you from our revolution.
All right. Thank you so much, Amirah. This was awesome. We are looking forward to Wednesday. Paco, back to you.
All right, thank you, Amirah, and thanks, Ana Marta. So our Revolution members, as you heard, are fighting for progressive policies like Medicare for All. And for as little as $5 a month, you can help support this important work. To become a movement builder, you can click on the link in the chat, help us get a record number of folks joining this call. We've heard from Linda, we've heard from Octavia. I would love to hear from others. And if you're listening on the phones, don't forget to press *3 and you can speak to an operator. And the operator will help sign you up. So I want to turn now to the next segment of our call, which is going to be about talking about the party, right? We talked about that a little bit with the DCCC blacklist, but I want to introduce Glenn Glazer. So Glenn is one of the leaders of Santa Cruz for Bernie and also a member of Our Revolution California. And he's going to tell us a little bit about our next guest. Glenn, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a great evening, and good evening to Our Revolution. Those of you who know me know that I don't work for any campaign that happens to come along. Just because honestly, I'm a lousy liar, and it shows when I don't speak, when I speak for someone I don't believe in. I have to believe for the person to speak from the heart. Believe like I believe in Bernie. Believe like I believe in Nina. Believe that this person won't just manage the California Democratic Party, but inspire us to greatness. And this belief gives me the ability to say from the heart that I have the pride, joy, and honor of introducing the next chair of the California Democratic Party, Miss Delane Easton. Please give it up for Delane.
Well, good evening, Our Revolution. Thank you so much, Glenn. Thanks to all of you for inviting me here tonight. I want to share a bit about myself and why I want to lead this great Democratic Party of California. I applaud the work of your chapters and what you're doing all over the country. You offer an inspiring way forward as we look toward building a strong base of progressive champions, coupled with grassroots and small donor support. We must never forget that we are a party of, by, and for the working class. The legislation we pass, as well as the donors who support us, should reflect that. We must make sure our elected representatives are champions for critical legislation, such as CalCare and the Green New Deal. So I want to continue to strengthen the California Democratic Party with a progressive vision. Many of you know me as the first and only woman elected state superintendent of public instruction in California, where I managed a workforce of more than 3,300 staff at the Department of Education, was responsible for over 40% of the state budget, and oversaw the education of more than 6 million California students. I served in the Assembly for 8 years before that and 6 years on the City Council. I'm the only candidate in this race that has won election to public office multiple times, and that matters in the role of party chair, where knowing how to run and win races is important. I was a member of the California Federation of Teachers when I worked as a community college professor right out of grad school. I am from a working class union family, the daughter of a dress clerk and a Navy veteran machinist who was a shop steward for the International Association of Machinists. I'm running to become chair of the California Democratic Party because we can and we must do better here in California. Last November, I was very concerned that even in the face of a big win for the Biden-Harris team, we suffered major losses in targeted congressional seats and key state propositions, In the midst of all that, engaged Democrats reached out to me and asked me to run to lead the party. I believe we would have been more likely to have held on to those lost seats with stronger management and organization. We had won them in a non-presidential year. So we also need to build a bench of progressive leaders all over this state who are ready to step up and lead. My top 6 priorities include organizing to defeat the recall should it qualify, winning back the seats we lost, and more. Implementing much better systems for our internal elections and appointments, democratizing the party, increasing diversity, and committing to campaign finance reform. We need to establish better policies with regard to preventing corporate influence, particularly from companies that are contrary to the values of the Democratic Party. So, our candidates must reject contributions from donors associated with fossil fuel companies, private prisons, and other entities that undermine working class communities and our democratic values. Additionally, we need to provide more resources for local Democratic candidates in areas such as financial assistance, training, messaging, and outreach. It was a loss for the California Democratic Party when the current chair eliminated the party's community engagement and constituency programs, which included a program, I might add, for young Democrats. We're going to have to bring those programs back after I'm elected, and we're going to make sure that Democrats of all backgrounds have a seat at the table. At the state level, I will democratize the party. There's been too much power in the hands of the chair, from appointments to fundraising decisions. And when that happens, people begin to feel powerless and irrelevant. I'll work with our delegates to ensure that our representation reflects the different regions and diversity of this state. The party I lead will engage everyone in California who shares our values and is inspired to help translate those values into action. We need to be an inclusive party with a courage to stand up to what we believe in, the vision to dare to strategically plan a future that includes electing progressive candidates in areas that have been neglected, and the heart to reach out to young progressives about the California we dare to dream about. Under my leadership, the California Democratic Party will reflect our democratic values, not just in words and a platform, but in ways we raise money and make decisions. When I'm chair, we'll be the party championing living wages, workers' rights, campaign finance reform, environmental justice, social justice, and Medicare for all. And of course, we'll make education a priority as the state of California Constitution says that it should be. It's critical that we support candidates who will advance progressive legislation such as CalCare once they are elected. And we need to call out the candidates who resist efforts to increase our investment in higher education, K-12, and child development while maintaining 5-star private prisons. Our candidates must be strong advocates for combating climate change and protecting our environment. The current California Democratic Party chair accepted fossil fuel money after signing a pledge that he would not. This is unacceptable. The California Democratic Party has members who veer to the center once in office because they think that's how to stay in office. We need leaders who will defend the rights of the homeless, but also take responsibility for building affordable housing. Let's hold them to their promises and to our values and our platform. I commit to doing just that. I hope to earn your support. Your chapters and other progressive clubs all over California have joined our campaign, including San Francisco Bernie Kratz, Santa Cruz for Bernie, our Revolution East Bay, our Revolution Long Beach, Field of Burn Los Angeles, our Revolution Orange County, and Humboldt County Progressives, and the San Diego Progressive Democratic Club. I have endorsements from WAPA PAC, California Democratic Party, Chicano Latino Caucus, Taisha Brown is chair of the California Democratic Party Black Caucus, and many others. I would be honored to have you by my side. It's time to build a more progressive California Democratic Party that represents working people, insists on Medicare for all, protects the environment. I know we have work to do to get back on track, and I promise I am ready to join you to do just that. Thank you for your consideration, and please stay safe out there.
Thank you, Delane Easton. That was powerful. Are there any questions in the chat for Delane? If not, I have one to get us started. Delane, what encouraged you to run? I know you've been involved in education. Why now? Why did you decide to run for the party now?
Great question. Thank you, Paco. I was actually approached by a number of people when after the November election, because in fact, after the November election, we had first gained 7 Republican seats as Democratic seats in 2018. We turned around and lost 4 of them in 2020. And we lost them a third of the seats in the entire nation. And that isn't acceptable. So in fact, a bunch of people called and said, Delane, you've got to step up. We need real leadership here. Bottom line is we do need somebody who understands how to organize and how to get things done. And that's what I've always done. So the fact that I have been elected to local government and state legislature as well as statewide, and the fact that I moved the needle in all the jobs that I held, it's imperative that we get somebody who can do this work and in fact will do this work going forward. And I just will tell you all that I really do believe that we need people that are going to be authentic for the young people. We got too many people signing up for no party preference who are in fact young because they're not sure the party will stand up for what it says it'll stand up to. And so let's get somebody that's, again, has the roots in labor, but also understands the importance of organizing party more effectively to get things done.
Great, Delane, and you're certainly a proven leader, and we look forward to seeing you as the next chair of the California Democratic Party. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll be hearing from you soon, I'm sure.
Well, thank you so much for including me. I mean, it's most sincerely, and I look forward to working with you all going forward.
So do we. Thank you, Delane. So you heard it from Delane. She's fighting to transform the Democratic Party of California into a more progressive party. And we are one of the only groups that does this across the nation, right? We had a pretty successful beginning of the year. We got our folks involved in the Democratic parties of Florida, Arizona, Illinois, and others. And that's how we're also working from the inside to make sure the Democratic Party represents the interests of working Americans and not the interests of Wall Street. And so if you want to join us in transforming the party into a more democratic and more progressive party, small d democratic and more progressive party, support our party building work by becoming a movement builder. And you can do that at the link in the chat. So I'm going to turn it back over to Ana Marta so she can tell us what's coming up next in our revolution this week.
Thank you so much, Paco. And everyone again in the chat, please sign up to become a member. And as a sample, just a quick sample of our in-depth organizing work that we are doing coast to coast, I'm going to do a quick recap of our upcoming calls on Tuesday, tomorrow, as we celebrate Women's History Month. Our Revolution Florida State organizing call will highlight progressive women fighting for equity and justice. Also on Tuesday, tomorrow, we have a busy day. The Virginia's People's Debate Series, co-sponsored by Our Revolution, will hold its final installment featuring the candidates running for Virginia governor. Then on Wednesday, you can join Our Revolution Oregon to hear about the implementation of Oregon's landmark drug decriminalization and addiction treatment initiative. Then moving on to Texas, on Thursday, Our Revolution Texas will feature Austin's Homes, Not Handcuffs campaign, the initiative to fix San Antonio's police department, and the bill to guarantee a minimum salary for teachers. Then on Saturday in New Jersey, my home state, Our Revolution New Jersey will honor Women's History Month by hosting a state assembly member, Brittany Timberlake, and labor leaders in a discussion on women's rights. Then on Sunday, Our Revolution Colorado's monthly meeting will discuss local Medicare for All initiatives and the fight to protect voting rights. So busy week coming up. And of course, on Wednesday, Medicare for All is going to get reintroduced, a ton of work ahead of us. So please, again, sign up in the chat, support our grassroots organizing work that we are doing coast to coast. It is so important now more than ever. We can actually get more co-sponsors to this bill and achieve healthcare justice with your help. We need your support. And with that, this was an amazing call with great guests and a ton of people joining us on Zoom and on the calls, on phones. Let's close this call as we do it every single night. A special thanks to our volunteers, of course, our donors who joined and became sustaining members. And let's chant together. You can unmute your microphone and you can say it with me. When we organize, we win.
We
When we
When we organize, we win.
we win. Good night, everyone. See you next week.